Manhattan had that tired silver morning, the kind that made shadows look like soft promises of rain. Emma's heart moved through it with a small, stubborn hope that today could be ordinary. She chose a simple cream dress the night before because ordinary felt like victory. The city disagreed. A glossy sedan cut through a puddle and sent a frozen torrent up her knees. The coffee she held trembled and betrayed her. The dress took the stain and the morning took the shape of a story she hadn't planned. She rushed into the building, heart loud against her ribs. People glanced, some pitying, some indifferent. Emma hit the elevator button and listened to the comforting tin of Lena's voice on the phone. She spoke too fast, the words tumbling out in that familiar rush that happens when one needs witnesses. She called the men who never apologized and the way they moved through the world like storms without regret. The elevator shuddered and stopped. Lights blinked. The small convertible of her complaint met the larger reality of the elevator's silence. Emma realized she had filled the confined space with her voice without noticing the other occupant. In the corner, like something out of a magazine cover she had no inclination to remember, a man stood perfectly composed. His suit was precise. He wore quiet confidence the way others wore cologne. Emma's cheeks heated. Embarrassment rolled through her and then a new, sharper blush when she remembered the words she let loose. She apologized into the air. He answered, not with anger, not with a reprimand, but with a small correction about elevators being shared places. There was no drama in his voice. That absence of drama felt strangely kind. When the doors opened, Ryan Holt offered a name and a small apology about the car. Emma left the elevator feeling smaller and oddly exposed. The day unspoled weirdly, like a film showing the same scene from several angles. In the conference room she found herself again under the quiet assessment of the very man she had complained about. Ryan Holt, she learned, was the leader of the company they were partnering with. The knowledge landed on her like a sudden draft. When the board began the ritual of disclaimers and careful sentences, a complaint surfaced. A delay in the communications piece of Emma's project had turned into a target. Fingers might have found other shoulders to tap, but they paused on hers. She answered with the steady clarity she had learned in years of late nights and early presentations. The air shifted when Ryan spoke. His voice was smooth and exact. He traced a timeline and returned the responsibility to where it truly belonged. The room exhaled, a small shift of allegiance, and Emma sat with relief that tasted like salt. After the meeting, Ryan followed her not in the way of public rescue but as a civilian with a private glance. He told her he did not like unfairness. She thanked him with a small honesty and then asked quietly why he bothered. He gave a simple answer: he did not like to see someone dealt a raw hand. That answer landed in Emma like a small, strange comfort. She told herself she would not forget his face, but she meant to forget the way his presence pressed something open inside her chest. The week moved as though it were testing the idea of ordinariness. Ryan appeared in places that mattered without making a scene. He offered data, an introduction, the kind of quiet resources that felt like a safety net. Emma resisted the comfort, insisting she could take care of her own mistakes, that she had built her career by doing it alone. Still, the office could be a field for slights. Colleagues who tolerated her brilliance rarely tolerated imperfections. Tomas Reed, a senior in another department, watched with the thin smile of a man who liked to see people stumble. Oliver Brandt made small jokes that had the sting of measurement. They were not cruel in grand gestures, only in the slow erosion of small moments. Emma felt watched. One evening after a long day, Emma slipped into the small cafe 2 blocks from the office. She breathed in the warm, bean-scented air and allowed herself the luxury of stillness. The bell chimed and Ryan entered without fanfare. He sat across from her with a cup steamed black and an expression like a map she could not read. This close, he was less formidable, more human. The distance between them was filled with polite small talk at first. Then Emma apologized for the elevator. He accepted it with a simplicity that disarmed her. They conversed like two people who had bumped into a shared moment and decided to walk it a little farther. Ryan listened with that patient attention that made her speak a little truer than she usually did. She told him about the petty politics at work and the way a misplaced blame could bruise a careful plan. He listened and offered no solutions at first, only a quiet promise that if things turned unfair again, he would step in. Emma laughed at the idea of being protected by a man who seemed more built for boardrooms than battlegrounds. The laugh was not mocking but soft with disbelief. Then the problem arrived. A misdirected internal email, a cleverly worded complaint from a client, a leak that suggested Emma's team had missed a deadline crucial for the partnership. The email landed on her screen the morning it mattered, and her chest tightened. The board would see it. They would ask for an explanation. She felt the old sharp panic of being on the rope and needing to pull herself up alone. Before she presented, Ryan appeared in the doorway, not announced, but simply there. He offered no dramatic testimony. He sat and watched the proceedings, and when the timeline was debated he asked a question that rerouted the conversation back toward facts. His timing was precise. The board recalculated. The light shifted in the room. Emma could feel relief climbing out of her throat like a tide. The episode should have been over. Facts had been laid. Truth had been quiet and steady. But the aftermath left a residue. Someone with a grudge spoke up over coffee to a journalist who loved scandal. This small rumor, born of discontent and fed by the slow appetites of gossip, found its way toward the edges of the internet. Emma felt the city watching in a new way. Her inbox filled with solicitations, her supervisor made small cold comments. In the evening as she walked home the sidewalk seemed full of faces that knew her mistake before she did. The first real threat came at night. Emma's route home crossed a narrow street where construction lamps made the sidewalk seem like islands. She hurried with a tired head, phone dim with messages, and then felt the steps behind her. A man called out and then fell silent. She quickened to a near run. The shape behind her matched her pace. Emma's pulse spiked. Fear is a quick, honest teacher. She moved faster. A shadow closed the distance and then another hand caught her shoulder and pulled her into the darker entrance of a small shop. For a second she feared a stranger's worst intention. The voice that said her name was Ryan's. His hand was steady on her arm. Behind him another figure laughed and moved on, the threat dissolving like smoke. Ryan held her for a second longer than necessary, and she felt the warmth of his presence like a shield. He did not smother, he created a space where danger could not reach. She wanted to protest, to say she had handled it, that she did not need saving. The sentence felt thin in her mouth. He asked if she was all right. She forced a laugh. He did not let go of her arm until she steadied. Then he explained. He watched her commute sometimes, he said quietly, because a partnership meant more than contracts to him. It meant the people who made the work real. Emma looked at him, surprised by the careful tenderness in his eyes. She had always prided herself on independence. Accepting help felt like a small capitulation. Ryan's proposition was not wrapped in ownership. It was a promise. That promise landed differently in her chest than any apology or compliment ever had. The next days were a lesson in new proximity and quiet navigation. Ryan remained present in ways that were practical and unobtrusive. He moved a driver to a different schedule so Emma would not share lobbies with the car that had splashed her. He supplied documents under the guise of partnership support and sent notes of professional encouragement that felt oddly personal. Emma found herself watching him watch problems. She caught him standing by the office window as if timing the city's reach. Once he handed her a small paper bag of pastries with no announcement and a note that said nothing more than "take a moment." The gesture was simple and wholly unnerving. She ate a pastry and felt something inside her unbutton. Despite all, Emma held to her competence. She did not want to be the woman who leaned on a man for protection. She built her days around competence and quiet tenacity. Yet the world around her was not always fair. Gossip fed on small things and malice sometimes hid in the mundane. Tomas, who had once offered hollow sympathy, began to push subtly. He suggested reassignments in meeting corridors and left ambiguous comments that rippled into HR. Oliver created a rumor with a half sentence and watched it grow. These acts were small but pointed. Emma felt the edges of her resolve fray. One afternoon a rumor grew loud enough to be a risk. An anonymous message suggested Emma had manipulated internal numbers to secure the partnership. The allegation was false and reckless but sufficient to make stakeholders nervous. Emma felt the room tilt. Ryan did not make a spectacle. Instead he organized a private review, calling only the relevant people and walking them through the data he had. His tone was even. He exposed the real timeline with careful evidence and named the true origin of the scandal where it belonged, a rival department's reworked memo. The truth, once arranged, had a way of clearing itself like rain in spring. After the review was over, Emma found herself outside the glass conference room watching Ryan exchange a few quiet words with Leah Mendoza, her closest friend at work. Ryan's skin softened in those seconds, and Emma felt a curious gratitude. She walked toward them with a cautious step, prepared to speak her thanks like a formal note. Instead, she found herself saying something truer and smaller. "Thank you," she said simply. Ryan hesitated for a beat, then answered with the words she did not expect. He said he would watch over her. He said it as if offering a simple fact, not a claim. The phrase snagged in Emma's throat. It sounded like a promise and also like the beginning of something she had not planned to allow. She kept her smile measured and professional, but inside she felt the stirrings of something tender and dangerous. That night Emma lay awake reflecting on the way her life had tilted in only a few days. She thought of independence and of the odd comfort of being seen. She had spent years learning to rely on herself. To accept Ryan's protection felt like folding a corner of a map she had drawn herself. Yet the memory of his hand that night in the doorway of the shop returned with a clarity that made her chest ache. She promised herself two things. First, she would not let a few acts of kindness rewrite the rules she had set for herself. Second, she would not ignore the truth that sometimes safety came from the unexpected. The city beyond her window hummed with stories. Emma's was only beginning. She did not know the shape it would take. She only knew that Ryan's presence had changed the geometry of her world. The next morning the elevator ding sounded ordinary. Emma stepped in with her coffee and her badge and her small rehearsed calm. Ryan was already there, silent and composed, watching the floor numbers light. She offered him a brief, neutral nod. He returned it with a slight smile and the quiet of a man who kept a promise already in motion. Emma inhaled. Emma woke with the soft ache of a restless night. The sky outside her apartment window held a pale glow, the kind that offered no certainty about how the day would go. She moved through the morning with quiet precision, brushing her hair, slipping into a dark skirt, smoothing the fabric until it felt like armor. Her mind replayed Ryan's promise from the day before, not because she wished to depend on it but because it unsettled her in ways she could not name. The office lobby greeted her with the usual hum of shoes and muted conversations. Emma clutched her coffee and hurried toward the elevator when she noticed Leah waving. Leah, sharp-minded and steady, walked beside her and nudged her shoulder gently. She asked if Emma had read the latest client note. Emma tensed, expecting bad news, but Leah reassured her with a grin. The client had praised her updates and requested that she personally handle the next stage of communication. The news felt like sunlight breaking through. Still, one positive email did not erase the tension that had lingered in the office. The rumor that had briefly threatened her career had quieted but not dissolved entirely. Whispers had a stubborn way of hiding in corners. Emma sensed eyes gliding over her, measuring whether she deserved her position or if Ryan's influence now overshadowed her accomplishments. The idea stung. She had worked too long and too hard to let anyone believe she had gained her footing because of a man. Emma attended meetings, answered questions with clarity, and maintained her steady professional rhythm. The day moved like a slow procession. Then, during a small project review, she felt the air in the room shift again. A junior analyst named Celeste, known for her keen insight and sharper temper, raised a question about the data transfer timeline. Her tone held no accusation, but her phrasing allowed doubt to slip through the cracks. Ryan, seated beside Tomas and two external consultants, lifted his gaze toward Celeste. His expression was calm but precise, the look of someone who saw everything. Emma explained the issue with care, guiding the room through the steps taken and the solutions proposed. At the end of her explanation, Ryan made one simple comment that affirmed her reasoning entirely. The tension around the table eased. Several heads nodded. Celeste offered a quiet apology. Emma accepted it, though her pulse still lingered at the edges of panic. After the meeting, Ryan stayed behind. He stood by the long glass window, a silhouette against the city's restless light. Emma hesitated before approaching him. She felt something shift between them each time they were alone, whether in the elevator or a conference room. A silent understanding had formed, one that she didn't fully grasp. Ryan asked if the review had unsettled her. Emma answered honestly that it had. She confessed that scrutiny had always been her greatest fear, not because she doubted her skill but because she had learned early that mistakes often cost women more than men in their field. Ryan listened quietly, his posture attentive but not intrusive. He told her he understood the weight of being watched even when one did everything right. His voice softened in a way Emma had not heard before. He mentioned someone from his past, not by name, only by memory. A person who had taught him that silence could be more dangerous than confrontation. He carried that lesson still and held a deep dislike for people who misused power. Emma listened, surprised to hear something personal slip through his guarded exterior. Ryan rarely spoke about himself. When he did, it felt like a small bridge lowering between two isolated towers. Before they could continue, Tomas entered with a folder and a thin smile that held little warmth. He apologized for interrupting and quickly directed his attention to Ryan, asking if they could discuss a potential restructuring proposal. Emma stepped back politely. Ryan's gaze lingered on her for half a second longer, as if marking the end of a private moment. She nodded and left the room. The next few days seemed quieter, which often meant a storm was building somewhere beneath the surface. Emma noticed the way people whispered near the copy machine or paused when she entered. She did not ask for explanations. Instead, she focused on her tasks, meeting deadlines, offering support to her team, and practicing the calm she wanted to feel. One afternoon, Leah rushed to her desk with an urgent whisper. A journalist named Naven Kaur had contacted someone in their department seeking information on the partnership with Ryan's company. Naven was known for publishing pieces that blended truth with speculation, and he had a reputation for shining spotlights where shadows were meant to stay. Emma felt a slow tightening in her stomach. She did not want attention, especially not the kind that twisted facts for views. Leah advised her to stay alert. Rumors often grew teeth when journalists started digging. Later that evening, Emma stepped outside into the crisp air. She took her usual path home, though she now walked with heightened awareness after the incident in the narrow street. She passed the small cafe where she and Ryan had spoken. The light glowed warmly. She considered entering but decided the privacy of home felt safer. As she turned the corner, a familiar voice called her name. Ryan approached, hands in his coat pockets, the wind nudging strands of his dark hair. He explained he had just left a meeting nearby and saw her walking. Emma smiled gently, grateful for the coincidence. Ryan asked if she would join him for a quick walk. She agreed. Their steps aligned as they moved through the busy sidewalk. Ryan asked about her day, and Emma mentioned Naven Kaur's interest. Ryan's expression sharpened. He asked what the journalist wanted. Emma told him she did not know, only that the timing unsettled her. Ryan considered the information with a steady gaze. He said he had dealt with Naven before and that the journalist rarely acted alone. Someone usually fed him pieces of a story to stir trouble. Emma wondered who would want to drag her into something like that. The thought of being a pawn in someone's game made her chest tighten. Ryan reassured her with a quiet certainty that whatever came, they would handle it. She paused at the softness of the word they. It felt both comforting and dangerous. They reached her apartment building and paused under the soft glow of the entrance lights. Ryan looked at her with a sincerity that made her breath catch. He said he would keep a close watch over the situation. Emma thanked him but reminded him gently that she did not want to rely too heavily on him. Ryan accepted her words with respect, although something in his eyes hinted he would not step back easily. Over the next week, Navancourt's inquiries grew louder. He contacted a former client, a receptionist, even someone from Emma's old team at her previous job. Emma learned this from Leah and from a friend in HR who warned her discreetly. The journalist wanted a story, and he seemed determined to find one even where none existed. Ryan intensified his involvement in the partnership meetings. Some colleagues whispered that he attended only because of Emma. Others claimed he had personal motives. Emma ignored them, though she felt the pressure building. Still, she could not deny the quiet steadiness he offered. One morning Emma arrived early to a half-lit office. She enjoyed the silence before the day's noise. As she settled into her work, she heard footsteps. Ryan entered carrying 2 coffees. He placed one on her desk without ceremony. Emma thanked him with a shy smile. The gesture was simple, yet it warmed her in a way few things did anymore. They talked briefly about the upcoming presentation. Ryan noticed the slight tremor in her hand and asked if something was wrong. Emma confessed she feared the journalist's investigation might escalate. Ryan assured her he had already contacted someone who could intervene if needed, someone with influence in the media world. Emma stared at him, struck by the ease with which he moved in circles that felt unreachable to her. She asked him why he cared so much. It was not an accusation, just a question filled with honest confusion. Ryan hesitated, then answered that he admired people who stood their ground amid unfairness. He said Emma reminded him of someone who had once mattered to him, someone he had not been able to protect in time. The confession thinned the air between them. Before Emma could respond, Leah appeared with folders, ending the moment. Ryan excused himself. Emma watched him leave with a heart that felt suddenly unsteady. The next turning point came in the form of a meeting invitation. Harold Vance, a senior board member known for his severe expectations, requested an immediate project status review. The timing suggested someone had raised concerns again. Emma prepared her notes meticulously. Her chest felt heavy with the familiar dread of being cornered. Leah accompanied her for support. As they entered the conference room, Emma noticed Navancourt standing near the window, speaking to a staff member. Her spine stiffened. Journalists were never allowed inside internal meetings. How had he managed to be there? Before she could process it, Harold Vance asked her to present the current state of the project. Emma spoke steadily despite the unease twisting in her stomach. Mid-presentation, Navan interrupted with a pointed question about inconsistencies in the early data logs. Harold allowed it. Emma felt like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. She explained calmly, but Navan's line of questioning hinted he possessed internal documents. Emma realized immediately someone had given him confidential materials. Ryan entered the room then, unplanned, his gaze sweeping across the scene. He took a seat beside Harold without waiting for permission. The journalist continued pressing. Ryan asked him a sharp question. Where had he obtained those documents? Navan deflected. Ryan repeated the question. The room hit a stretch of silence. Harold frowned. Finally, Navan admitted someone had anonymously sent him information. Emma's heart thudded. Someone wanted to destroy her credibility entirely. Ryan stood. He requested a pause. He presented a data audit report he had prepared earlier when he sensed the situation might escalate. The document exposed the tampering done by someone in another department, someone who had altered timestamps to redirect blame. The room shifted as if pulled back into alignment. Harold examined the papers with a hard stare. Navin's confidence wavered. Ryan concluded that the journalist had been manipulated into targeting the wrong person and recommended an internal investigation. Harold agreed and dismissed Navin immediately. Emma sat in stillness as the journalist left the room. Her body trembled with relief and shock. Ryan placed the report in front of her and told her calmly that he had known this was coming. She asked why he had not warned her. He said gently that she already carried too much weight and he did not want fear to shape her work. When the room finally emptied, Ryan asked if she could walk with him. They left the office and stepped into the quiet street where the air smelled of early rain. Ryan admitted he had been watching the tension build for days. He also admitted something else, something softer. He said he found himself wanting to guard her even when it was not required of him. The words brushed against Emma like a confession of something deeper than duty. Emma felt her breath falter. She asked him why she meant so much to him. He said he did not yet know the full answer, but he felt that her presence steadied something inside him that had shaken for years. The streetlights flickered as they walked. Their steps slowed. The city around them blurred. Emma felt the world narrow to the quiet space between their hands. She did not take his hand, and he did not offer it. Yet the unspoken connection grew stronger than a touch. Part 2 closes with Emma standing at her apartment door, turning back to look at Ryan as he waited near the sidewalk. He said he would stand here until she was safely inside. She whispered goodnight with a trembling voice. When the door clicked shut behind her, Emma leaned against it with her heart racing. She knew that whatever this was between them had crossed into something neither of them had planned. But she also sensed that danger was still ahead. The truth had not fully surfaced, and someone in the company still wanted her to fall. The morning light felt softer than usual when Emma opened her eyes, yet her chest carried the lingering thrum of the night before. Ryan's words still echoed through her like a quiet melody she did not want to forget. She dressed slowly, choosing a muted blue blouse and tying her hair back with deliberate care. She wanted to step into the day with composure, even though the uncertainty surrounding her reputation still hovered like a thin shadow. When she arrived at the office, Leah waved her over with a quick urgency that made Emma's stomach tighten. The internal investigation had begun. HR had sent out emails requesting interviews with several employees, including Tomas and Oliver. Both men reacted in very different ways. Tomas feigned innocence and frustration, insisting he had nothing to hide. Oliver kept glancing around the office as if looking for an escape route. Neither approach inspired confidence. Tasks piled up, emails arrived in clusters, and voices in the hallway rose like waves against metal railings. Emma tried to ground herself in her work, but the tension in the atmosphere felt sharper than before. Some employees whispered concerns while others waited anxiously for answers. It was clear that the office had become a lingering battlefield of unspoken alliances. Emma attended a morning briefing where Harold Vance reviewed the updated project schedule. His stern tone suggested he expected excellence, but his occasional glances toward Emma conveyed something new: respect. When Emma presented her section, her voice carried the calm strength she had learned to craft over years of pressure. She kept her focus on the facts, the projections, and the clear path forward. When she finished, Harold nodded. It was not a dramatic gesture, but it was enough to signal that Emma had regained her footing in his eyes. Several colleagues took note. Emma felt a small spark of pride, the kind that warmed her so deeply she almost forgot the chaos surrounding her. After the meeting, Ryan caught up with her in the hallway. He walked beside her with hands in his pockets, his step aligned with hers as naturally as breath. He asked if she was holding up well, and Emma nodded with a gentle smile. He studied her expression, searching for the truth behind her composure. Emma admitted she was tired. Not physically tired, but worn down from the constant vigilance. Ryan listened, then told her he admired her strength more than she knew. His voice held a softness that reached her heart before she could guard it. She thanked him quietly. There was a pause, the kind that often waited for something unspoken. Emma wanted to ask Ryan how long he planned to stay involved in the partnership work, whether his presence was purely professional or if he was still watching over her because of his promise. But she did not voice the question. She feared the answer either way. As they neared the office cafe, Ryan said he wanted to discuss something important later. His tone carried a weight she could not decipher. Emma agreed, though her curiosity grew like a small flame in her chest. Leah appeared moments later with a printout of an internal memo. The memo detailed inconsistencies in timestamp edits done on the leaked documents. The findings pointed toward higher-level access. The list of potential culprits had narrowed to only a few: Tomas, Oliver, and Aidan Cross, a quiet but ambitious director who rarely spoke to Emma directly. The mention of Aidan unsettled her. He was known for his strategic mind and nearly invisible presence. He had a reputation of slipping through corporate structures like smoke. He rarely showed his hand and never appeared flustered. If he wanted Emma gone, then the attack on her career might have been orchestrated with chilling precision. Despite the mounting pressure, the day moved forward. Emma attended a series of interviews facilitated by HR. She answered each question with measured clarity, explaining her actions, her timelines, and her involvement in the partnership. HR seemed satisfied, though Emma knew that satisfaction alone could not guarantee safety. Later that afternoon, Ryan sent her a message asking if she could meet him in one of the small rooftop lounges after work. The lounges were quiet spaces used by executives to decompress. Emma hesitated before replying. She knew that meeting him alone might spark rumors, but she also sensed something important awaited her. When the workday ended, she walked slowly toward the elevator, feeling the familiar weight of her bag on her shoulder. She pressed the button and waited, her thoughts swirling with anticipation. The elevator opened and she stepped inside. She could not help remembering the day she had insulted a stranger, unaware he would become the person she trusted most. The memory softened her frustration and made her smile. On the rooftop, the wind moved through her hair gently, carrying the scent of the city. Ryan stood near the railing, his back to her, watching the skyline. The evening light cast a warm glow along the horizon. He turned when he heard her footsteps. Emma approached him. Ryan asked if she wanted something to drink. She said no, her heart beat a little faster as she waited for him to speak. He took a slow breath. Ryan confessed that he had been looking into the pattern of sabotage quietly. He had found evidence suggesting someone had manipulated not just one, but several internal documents related to her project. It was a coordinated effort. Someone wanted her removed. He believed that Aidan Cross was involved. Emma felt her breath hitch. She asked how sure he was. Ryan said he was still gathering proof, but the clues pointed toward Aidan. He added that Aidan had previously attempted to take control of projects by undermining colleagues, though he had never been caught. Ryan wanted to stop him before he harmed anyone else, especially Emma. The words carried a depth that made her chest tighten. She asked why he was going to such lengths for her. Ryan hesitated. He said she reminded him of the kind of person he wished he could have protected in his past. Someone who had been taken advantage of by people with power. He said he would not allow history to repeat itself. The sincerity in his voice made tears threaten behind Emma's eyes. She looked away for a moment, focusing on the lights below. She didn't like feeling vulnerable, but she also felt a growing warmth around her heart. She told Ryan she did not want him to carry her burdens alone. He smiled faintly and said sharing the weight did not make him weaker. It made them both stronger. Before they could speak further, the rooftop door opened. Aidan Cross stepped out. His expression was unreadable. He approached slowly, his gaze flicking from Ryan to Emma. The tension thickened like fog. Aiden greeted them politely with a tone so smooth it felt rehearsed. Ryan's posture shifted, becoming subtly defensive. Aiden said he had overheard rumors about the investigation and wanted to reassure them that he had nothing to do with the leaks. His calm was unsettling. Emma studied him. His eyes were too steady. His posture too controlled. She sensed danger beneath the polished exterior. Ryan asked Aiden directly if he had spoken to the journalist. Aiden smiled thinly and dismissed the idea. He claimed he barely knew the journalist's name. The conversation stretched awkwardly. Aiden excused himself and left with a final glance at Emma that lingered too long. Ryan watched him disappear through the door, his jaw tightening. Emma felt a chill run through her. The next morning the office buzzed with tension. HR scheduled final interviews. The investigation was reaching its climax. Rumors swirled again, though no one dared speak too loudly. Emma moved through the day with heightened caution. During lunch Leah pulled her aside with urgent news. The internal security team discovered that the anonymous email to the journalist had been sent from a device registered to the executive floor. Further digging revealed that the sender had used a masked login that only a handful of people had access to. Ryan, upon hearing this, immediately requested a private meeting with Harold Vance. Emma attended as well, though she felt like she was stepping into a storm. Harold listened as Ryan presented evidence. He pointed out inconsistencies in access logs, traced activity times that aligned with Aiden's schedule, and referenced past behavioral issues that had never been documented but were well known among long-term employees. Harold leaned back in his chair, absorbing everything. When he finally spoke, his voice was icy. He said he would not tolerate manipulation or internal attacks within his company. He promised swift accountability once proof was fully verified. Emma felt both relief and dread. The truth was closing in, but the tension felt heavier than ever. She wondered how Aiden would react if confronted. People with power rarely surrendered gracefully. The turning point arrived unexpectedly. At the end of the day Navin Kaur returned, this time escorted by Harold. The journalist apologized to Emma in person. He admitted someone had misled him and provided false documents. Navin revealed a detail he had initially omitted. The anonymous source had attempted to meet him in person but arrived wearing a mask and hat. However, Navin noticed something peculiar. The source had a faint scent of cedarwood cologne, a fragrance not commonly worn. Harold's face hardened. Aiden Cross was known for wearing cedarwood cologne. The final piece slipped into place. Security was notified. Aiden was brought in for questioning. Under pressure he initially denied everything. But inconsistencies cracked his calm. His motives emerged slowly. He had wanted control over the project and believed Emma's growing influence and competence threatened his ambitions. He saw her as someone who needed to be undermined before she advanced too far. His plan was to destabilize her, cause her dismissal, and then step into her responsibilities. The revelation shocked the office. Aiden was suspended pending formal action and escorted out. Emma watched him leave through the glass doors with a mix of fear and triumph. She felt shaken but victorious. After the storm quieted, Emma returned to her desk and found a small note tucked under her keyboard. It was from Ryan. It simply read, "You stood your ground. I have never been more proud to witness anything." The words made her eyes sting. That evening Ryan asked if she wanted to take a walk. They strolled along the river path that reflected the soft lights of the city. The air felt lighter, washed clean of the tension that had held her captive for weeks. Ryan stopped near a railing and turned toward her. He asked how she felt now that the truth had finally surfaced. Emma admitted she felt both exhausted and free. She told him she would never forget what he had done for her. He said she didn't owe him anything, that he had acted because he cared. Emma asked him softly what exactly he cared about. Ryan's silence stretched for a moment. Then he confessed with gentle clarity that he cared about her. Not as a colleague. Not as a responsibility, but as someone who had come to matter deeply. The world seemed to pause. Emma felt her heart tremble. She realized she had felt something growing too, something tender and frightening and undeniable. She stepped closer, her breath unsteady. She told him she cared for him as well, though the feelings had come quietly and surprised her. Ryan's eyes softened in a way she had never seen. He reached for her hand slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their fingers interlaced. The simple connection carried the unspoken promise of something new. They stood together under the evening sky, the city humming softly around them. Emma felt grounded yet lifted, as if she had finally found a place where she could breathe deeply and safely. The investigation ended. Emma's reputation was restored. HR publicly cleared her name. Tomas and Oliver apologized for doubting her. Leah hugged her tightly. Harold gave her a rare smile, assuring her that her role was secure and her future bright. Weeks passed. The partnership project thrived. Emma and Ryan continued to grow closer, navigating their connection with patience and sincerity. There were no dramatic declarations. No rushed moments. Only steady, honest steps towards something that felt real. One quiet evening months later, Emma stood with Ryan on a terrace overlooking the city. He rested a hand at her back, gentle and protective. She leaned into him, feeling safe in a way she had not believed possible when the story first began. She thought of the elevator where she had insulted a stranger. She thought of the threats and the whispered doubts. She thought of the nights she walked through shadows, unaware that protection was already on its way.